break from being on camera. So you are getting a candle with intentions set in that for everyone here. So I hope everybody's doing well. I'm having a coffee. I'm taking a sip right now. So I haven't done a live in such a long time. And I've been promising you guys that I would come back and I would do a live of some sort. Um, but I was trying to figure out the right timing. And, I just felt a pull on my spirit tonight to do it. So I'm going to allow some people to come into the room. And as we're doing that, I'll notify some of you on Facebook and some different places. And definitely, if you like the lives, if you like the page, please share it, please like it, because that helps the channel to grow and build. But I want to talk a little bit tonight about spiritual growth. Because when I put out a post earlier, I put out a poll maybe about a month ago, and I was asking everyone what you would like me to discuss in the next live. And there were two things that came up. The first one was how to grow spiritually, and the second one was how to develop psychic abilities. And those two kind of go hand in hand because as you're growing spiritually, gifts will start to unfold. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And as people come into the room and flow into the room, we'll sort of see where we land. But let's just start with spirituality. Let's start with growing as a spiritual being and what that looks like and how that is. Growing spiritually is different for everyone, right? And it's not so much a performative thing where you're doing it for other people or you're trying to show people that you're spiritual in some way. It's more about you coming back to yourself, coming back to your soul, which is the essential part of you, it's the non human aspect of you that lives forever. So it's about coming back to the stillness and the pureness and the purity, rather, of that. It's also about developing a relationship with your creator, developing a relationship with God. And I would also say, while you're here on planet Earth, it's about developing a relationship with the earth because the earth is our mother. So, one of the best ways to grow and evolve spiritually is to actually get out in nature. And I say it a lot, and I know it sounds very, very cliched to get out in nature, but the truth of the matter is that when you get out in nature and you're communing with the animals, you're communing with the earth, everything is around you, you're really in the real world. You're seeing things as they are, right? You're touching them, you're tasting them, you're sensing them, you're communing with them. You're not necessarily in a fantasy or in a daydream of your own making. Because one of the things that I find doing readings for a lot of people, the reason why some people are in such a state of unhappiness and in a state of unrest is because they're not actually plugged into reality. So even if we're looking at love and relationships, or we're looking at career, we're looking at different things, sometimes people are living and existing in a fantasy world where they're not actually dealing with the reality of what is going on in their lives. They're not learning how to say goodbye to things that are no longer working. They're not looking maybe at their career or work or business with a state of maybe being more realistic, more discerning, clearer about what's in front of them, right? In this world of law of attraction, there's constantly this idea that you can manifest whatever you want whenever you want. But the truth is that if it's not for the highest vibration and the highest expression of your soul, you may have it for a period of time, but if it doesn't serve your soul, eventually it will leave you. So I'm going to go into the room. Hey, everybody. This is Nicole, psychic, medium, and intuitive artist. I'm taking a break from being on camera tonight. So we have a candle going and just setting the intention that the right people come into the room and that we commune and connect with each other. Tonight, we're talking about spiritual growth and how to grow spiritually. And while you guys are here, if you can type in the chat, just type if you can hear me, because I just want to make sure that people can hear me. So just type it and just let me know because I'm trying to make sure that everyone can hear me. Oh, you can. Okay, perfect, perfect. So tonight we are talking about how to grow spiritually. And the biggest thing that came through and I was focused on is really getting outside if you can, getting outside, being in nature. That is the quickest way for you to grow spiritually. Go outside, have a walk, and just look for things to appreciate. It sounds so basic, it sounds so simple, but sometimes the simplest things can be the most complicated, but those are the things that tap into your spirituality and help you to connect with the divine. So I'm going into the chat room. Does anybody have any questions, any topics of conversation that you want to discuss? We're going to be talking about all things spiritual tonight, but specifically how you grow spiritually and how you trust your intuition and you listen to your inner voice. Because a lot of people have asked me, how to develop psychic gifts, for example, how to be clairaudient or clairvoyant or clairsentient. And those are gifts really that live inside of you if you have them. Sometimes they're dormant, sometimes they're latent. But a lot of times, what it is that you have to listen to your intuition first. You have to listen to that gut instinct and inner knowing when you're making choices and decisions. As you follow that gut instinct, it will give way to other gifts and abilities. But often, what happens is, if your spirit cannot trust you with the small things like intuition and following that, it's more difficult to trust yourself with the bigger things, visions, and deeper information because you may not follow it. So I am having a coffee right now. Is anybody else having something to drink? I'm doing iced coffee, doing a decaf though. I never thought ever actually that I would do decaf coffee. I'm always like a full bodied espresso girl. But I find that, full bodied espresso all the time does not help with my sleep. So I have switched to decaf even during the daytime, which is such a different thing for me. But yeah, type in the chat if there is something that you want me to focus on or questions. And yes, hello to everyone. I'm sort of typing and doing multiple things at once, you guys. So just let me know. Um, but yes, let's talk a little bit about intuition. I discuss it a lot, but I think that people still get confused on what it is, and I think it bears repeating. Intuition is the gut instinct, it's the inner knowing, it's non emotional, it's not a psychic ability. It is just that knowing that something is right for you or it's wrong for you. It's just that knowing that you need to move towards something or away from it. And I said this in a previous video, but I'll repeat it here. A lot of times, in order to trust your intuition, you have to go back to a time in your life before your innocence was taken, right? So, a lot of times, you have to go back to childhood. You have to go way, way back. But if you think about the times in your childhood where you were confident and you knew that something was right for you or wrong for you, and you followed it or you stepped away from it, that's what intuition feels like. And in your adult life, if you can follow that, you will begin to trust yourself more. I think what happens a lot in adult life is that we will get an intuitive hit about something and then we will second guess it. And we'll tell ourselves the reasons why it couldn't possibly be this and it couldn't possibly be that and it couldn't possibly work. And what Spirit says again and again is that if you don't follow the intuitive impulse, if you don't follow that intuitive information, it's not like it goes away because intuition, it doesn't change. So the message will remain the same. But what happens is your confidence begins to shrink. And it begins to shrink because you're not following the knowledge and the understanding that is meant to keep you safe. Intuition typically tends to be, it doesn't always give a lot of information. Psychic abilities are different. They tend to be more descriptive, they tend to be more colorful, they tend to be packed with a lot more detail. Intuition is more like turn left instead of right, go straight, don't go backward. But if you follow it, it is actually going to lead you to something better. It's going to lead you to your destiny. And I think that sometimes is the like unsexy, uninteresting part of growing and evolving spiritually. But it really starts with you. It starts with your inner knowing, your inner voice. And your intuition really is your compass. It really is your guidance system, your tracker that is sending you where you need to go. So if you can tap into that and listen to that, you will be just fine. So I am going to send out a live message. I hope that everybody is doing well tonight. I know that it's been cold. I'm in Florida and I'm in Miami specifically, and Miami tends to be very, very hot. But over this past week rather, we've been in the 40s, which, if you live up, if you're north or you live in a colder climate, the 40s is like nothing. The 50s is nothing. It's not that cold. But for Miami, it's pretty cold. And tonight, I remember I was walking, I was going down near Calle Ocho, which is Little Havana. And this woman was coming and crossing the street, and she just looked at me and she was like, "Oh my God, it's cold." And I was like, "It is." Everybody had their jackets, everybody was bundled up. We had some people that were tourists that were walking around, and I don't think that any of them expected this, because there were some people just like walking around in flip flops and not at all expecting this cold front. So, wherever you are, especially if you're in the United States, the storms are well underway. Make sure that you take care of yourself, make sure that you bundle up, make sure you do that. Make sure that you do that. Let's talk about psychic abilities a little bit. A little bit. So I'm going to run them down a little. They are not really that complicated. It's very simple. Clairvoyance is clear seeing, which means seeing pictures and movies in your mind. Um, Claircognizance is just a knowing of things. Clairgustance is smelling things. A lot of times, mediums have clairgustance, especially if they're connecting with deceased loved ones who may have been smokers or may have loved to bake or cook. A lot of times, spirit will give you certain smells to help you to understand who's trying to come through. Um, I'm trying to rattle them off the top of my head. Clairaudience. Clairaudience is probably my strongest ability, and that's just a clear hearing. For some people, they actually hear voices. Others of us, there are thoughts that kind of just drop into our mind like a download, right? But the thing is that you always want to work with intuition first, because even if spirits are appearing to you, even if you're getting visions or there's something that you're hearing repeating again and again, you can always ask intuitively, is this true? Is this correct? Should I listen to this? And then you do an intuitive check to see if it's a yes or a no. Because oftentimes, if psychic abilities are coming in and flooding in without you using your intuition as a barometer, if you will, or a compass, if you will, to determine the validity of the message, sometimes the messages can get scrambled. And a lot of times that's what happens in reading sometimes. We as psychics, mediums, and intuitives, we are human beings and spiritual beings at the same time. We're having this physical experience on earth. And every reading is not going to be 100% accurate. Sometimes people will misread signals and messages and information. And so it's very important to know that and understand that as you move forward. But often, if you ask divine source, if you ask creator to give you clear information and you check in with your intuition to see what is true or what is false, what is real, what is not, the information will flow through. So, number one thing, just to recap, when it comes to spirituality, is to the best of your ability. And I know right now it's not always possible given everything that's going on in the world, unfortunately. But to the best of your ability, if you can, within reason and within safety, get outside, get out into the real physical world. It makes me think about a lot of readings that I've done over the years, specifically love and relationship readings. And sometimes, there are people who will come for sessions that are wanting to know how somebody feels about them, or if a relationship, pardon me, could or would go the distance. And sometimes what comes through in the reading, spirit will say it very clearly, is that the person is not necessarily physically present in their real life, meaning that the person or the people that they're asking about have not really shown signs, at least not in the recent past, that something could even move forward, right? But if we're living in a place of fantasy and we're in our minds all the time, or, if we're always connected to our devices all the time and we're not looking up and looking out in the world and interacting with people, we can start to daydream and we can start to believe that something may be true when it really isn't. The best way to know really is to get out into the world and to talk to people and to put yourself into group settings and to kind of throw yourself into that, even if you feel uncomfortable. Because once you're out in the world, once you're out in the sunlight, once you're out in the daylight, even in the twilight, like you see things more as they are. You're able to truly interact with people and get a gauge and a feeling for who is for you and who is not. So, the biggest message I would say this year is really, really don't look down, but look up and look around. Um, one final thing before I close, I think about a week or week and a half ago, Spirit was telling me, make sure you look both ways before you cross the street. And they were saying that literally, obviously, as I'm walking and crossing the street, but they were also just saying in general, that's an overall message for all of us. It's a metaphor for so many different things that we need to be careful and aware before we make decisions, especially in this day and age and this time. You always want to do a check in before you go outside. Like, is it safe to be out right now? Should I even be here right now? Earlier this evening, as I said, I was walking around Calle Ocho and I was going further down 8th Street in Miami. And so I'm going down 8th Street, and there's this guy on a bike or something, or maybe on a scooter, I can't remember. And so I move out of the way for him to get past, and then another person comes towards me on a bike. And I heard very clearly from Spirit, don't go any further, just turn around, you know. And it's so funny because I was standing right in front of this CVS, and right across the entranceway it said do not enter, those do not enter signs or whatever. But that was clearly a sign from Spirit and in my physical reality to help me to understand whatever is over the bend here further down, you don't want to be there. So sure enough, I just turned back around and kept walking in the other direction. But it's things like that. Spirit will put things in your physical reality to help you to understand this is the way to go, this is the way to not. And if you follow that impulse and you follow that intuition, you follow that guidance, it will get stronger and it will get louder and you will get more confident. You know, Also thinking about discernment, which is the ability to look at a person, place, thing, or experience and see it for exactly what it is. Not what you want it to be, not what you would like it to be, not what you imagine it to be, but for what it is. And the beauty of discernment as well, you have to understand this, discernment is not just looking at the quote unquote negative things, it is also the positive things too. Being able to look at someone and see the potential and the beautiful things they are going to do with their lives. Looking at what is magical about people, looking at what is gorgeous and bright and colorful about folk, not just things that are potentially negative or hidden, etc. So also understand that if you're focused on discernment and discerning, you're not just looking at the negative, you're looking at the positive too, because discernment is what is. And there's light and there's dark and there's duality, there's many different things. Um, but definitely, I feel, and this is coming through, I think, for people who are coming into the room and maybe people who will watch this live at a later date, over the month of February, you really want to check in with yourself before you go anywhere, before you're going out. Okay. You want to ask Spirit, is it safe for me to be out right now? Is it the best place for me to go? Do I need to leave now? And just wait for the answer. And If it's a yes, you're fine and it's safe, go. And if you're feeling a lingering and a hanging back, it's a no. Stay home, enjoy your time with your family, enjoy your time with close friends around you. You don't have to be out all the time anyway. Just very, very important to be aware of your surroundings. And I would say this is true across, the United States, especially during the month of February specifically. You really want to kind of have your head on a swivel. That's just super, super important. It's interesting because I did not even expect to really talk about that. But as I'm sitting here, that is coming up. So, February, as I take a sip of my coffee, um, is a time to just be aware and look alive. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to share before we go. I think maybe the last thing that I would like to share, especially for those of you as we're getting into Valentine's Day month, and we're about 2 weeks away from that. I know there are a lot of people who get love and relationship readings, and you're going to be getting different psychic readings and things like that. Understand that the purpose of a reading is to help you to trust your intuition, see things clearly so that you can make the best possible choices in your life. That is the purpose of a reading. That is what readings are for. Readings are not necessarily meant to make you feel better immediately, especially if you have been living your life in such a way where you're in denial about a lot of things, right? If you're not looking at things clearly and nothing seems to be working, at first glance and at first experience, a reading that is clear and grounded and maybe direct, it may not necessarily feel great initially, right? Because if there is so much denial and things that you have packed on top of yourself, we have to take that off. We have to pull that off. We have to take those layers off in order to see the truth of what is. So understand that a session is really about bringing you back to yourself. If you want to grow and evolve spiritually, you have to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself about who you are, about how you're living, and about what you want to achieve. You also have to be honest with yourself about if you're willing to do it. You know, it's interesting sometimes, especially in the morning. Like, I'm one of those people, I really like it dark in my apartment. And even now, I have a bunch of low lights on. I just like that cozy feeling. But a couple days ago in the morning, I was in the bathroom getting ready to brush my teeth, wash my face. And Spirit just said, no, 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 turn all the lights on. You need to look at yourself. You need to see yourself, right? And here's the thing, looking in the mirror and seeing ourselves as we are and accepting ourselves as we are, that is a powerful place to be. And when you're able to look at yourself and see yourself as you are clearly, without beating yourself up, without putting yourself down, but just seeing it and just owning it, you're able to do that with other people too. You're able to do that for other people too. So just remember that discernment is not just about the quote unquote negative, right? It's not just about, people who don't have your best interest at heart. Discernment is also just about staring straight into the soul, straight into the eye of what is. And the key to all of this is, number one, building a relationship with Creator, talking to God the way that you would talk to a friend, getting out your journal, asking God, asking Spirit questions about your life and what you need to know, getting outside if you can, looking in the mirror and saying positive words of affirmation to yourself. And also understanding that even if nothing changed about your physical appearance, your money, whatever the thing is that you're trying to shift, could you still love yourself irregardless of that? That's the point. Loving and accepting yourself, irregardless of what you have or you don't. So I will leave you all with that. If you liked the live, if you enjoyed it, please like it, and please share it. For readings and more, you can find me at nicolebowman.biz. You can also listen to my podcast, Intuitive Conversations. And there are some links in the description with immediate sessions, email readings, one to one personal readings. And I will definitely be coming back for another live. And definitely get the conversation started. Drop in the comments. We can continue this conversation about spiritual growth in the comment section if you would like. And always remember to live your light, live your bliss, and love yourself. Ashe.